Oh, this morning, we know the story well. Jesus rising from the dead, and the angel rolled the stone away. But you know, I don't have Sunday school, and I have college. And I want to make sure that he understands what all this is about. What all this is about. So I will be reading from the book of John, chapter 20. Verses 1 through 18. And it tells the old story, which is the Easter story, which is the story of why we're having this day called Easter Sunday. It is truly the brightest day in the history of the religious world, because Jesus rose from the dead. And we know that Jesus lives because he lives within us. That's how he lives. He lives within us. He may not live within your neighbor, but as long as you know that he lives within you, he's part of you, then you know that he lives and his promises are true. Now, John chapter 20, verse 1. Early on Sunday morning, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and found that the stone had been rolled away from the entrance. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation. She ran and found Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved. Now this other disciple is the disciple John, because they say that John was his favorite. So they say the one that Jesus loved, that's John, so it's Peter and John. And she said, "They have taken the Lord's body out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." Peter and the other disciples started out for the tomb. They were both running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He stooped and looked in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he didn't go in. Then Simon Peter arrived and went inside. He also noticed the linen wrappings lying there, while the cloth that had covered Jesus' head was folded up and lying apart from the other wrappings. Then the disciple who had reached the tomb first also went in, and he saw and believed. For until then they still hadn't understood the scriptures that said Jesus must rise from the dead. Then they went home. Now, Sonny, would you come here a minute, please? You just want that little culture on the Sabbath day. You did not do any work. So they went the first day of the week, which was early Sunday morning. And, well, they didn't really go. Mary went. She went to see what was going on. And when Mary went and saw that there was no one, that the body was gone, she ran back and told the disciples. And Peter and John said, "What?" Now, remember, he had told them that he was not going to be in that grave very long. So when Mary went to tell them, "He's not there, the body's gone," they said, "What?" And they ran to see, and when they looked in, they saw that the tomb was empty. Jesus had been wrapped in cloth, kind of like a mummy. And so when they looked in, they saw that all of the wrappings, the fabric, it was still there, and there was one wrapped on his head. He had folded up neatly, and he wasn't there. He was gone. So after the disciples looked in, they saw he was gone. They said, "Oh, well, we don't know what happened," and they went back home. They went back home. But you know, as women, we're curious. We want to get to well, he's not there. Why isn't he there? We ask questions. So continuing on in verse 11, Mary was standing outside the tomb crying, and as she wept, she stooped and looked in. You know, that's kind of like me. Hassani tells me something and I don't believe him. I have to go check it out for myself. So it said that she looked in and she saw two white-robed angels, one sitting at the head and the other at the foot of the place where the body of Jesus had been lying. The two angels were there, one at the head and one at the foot. Two angels dressed in white. Those two angels, they were representing the positive words of life. They're going to speak words of encouragement to her that lift the body out of the matter into spirit. And they said, "Dear woman, why are you crying?" The angels asked. "Because they have taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they have put him." when she turned to leave and she saw someone standing there, and it was Jesus, but she didn't recognize him. "Dear woman, why are you crying?" Jesus asked. "Who are you looking for?" And she thought he was the gardener, and she said, "Sir, if you have taken him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will go and get him." She didn't recognize who Jesus was. She didn't know. But he said, "Mary." And she turned to him. When she heard her name, she turned. He said, "Mary." She turned to him and cried out, "Rabboni," which is Hebrew for teacher. And he said, "Don't cling to me, for I haven't yet ascended to the Father, but go find my brothers and tell them I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene found the disciples and told them, "I have seen the Lord." Then she gave them his message. So in this story, we see that Jesus rose from the grave. He came out of that tomb. He was not there. When Mary went to find him, he wasn't there. But he was there. She didn't recognize him until he called her name. When he called her name, she heard the Master's voice. It's kind of like, I remember this was years ago. I was at it used to be at Robinson's May. I was looking through clothes, and I heard somebody say, "Timmy." I said, I turned to look. And I knew it had to be somebody from my childhood, because most people that are grown call me Latricia. He said, "Timmy." And I turned to look. I didn't recognize the voice, but it was my name, and I turned to look, and it was a cousin that I hadn't seen for a long time. A cousin that I had not seen for a long time. And when Jesus said, "Mary," she knew the Master's voice. She knew the Master's voice. He called out to her, and she obeyed. And he said, "Don't touch me," as in that picture you see her. But he said, "Don't touch me. I'm not ready yet. But just go tell the disciples that you have seen the Lord, and that I did what I said that I was going to do." So this morning, my message is, have you heard him call your name? And if you have, are you obeying him when he has called you? It's a song that they used to sing. I know Brother Batiste will remember. It says, "Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name." And we have to know if it's the voice of the Lord that is calling and speaking to us. And if we are his child, if we have followed obeyed his rules, we will know when our shepherd calls us. It's like Jesus is the shepherd, and he's the shepherd of the sheep. And when the sheep hear their shepherd's voice, they come. We have this cat at our house. When they hear Hassani, they go running to him. When they see me, they run away. So they know their master's voice. Same with the dogs. They know that their master is Rashid, and when they see him, they just run to him. Now we have one that runs to anybody, but the main one, they know their master. Same with Mary. When Jesus said Mary, she knew his voice. She knew his voice. This morning, I want us to get in tune so that when we hear the voice of the Lord talking to us, we can say, "Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord, I hear you. I will answer. I will answer." There's a story in 1 Samuel. He was a little boy. His mom took him to the temple, and 3 times he thought that the prophet Elijah was. Anyway, 3 times he heard a voice, and his teacher said, "Just go back, it's not me." And the 3rd time he said, "Just get quiet and listen, because it's Jesus. It's the Lord who's calling you." So sometimes we have to listen, and we have to say, "Yes, Lord, is it you?" And he will answer us. He will answer us. But today we know that Jesus is alive. He was in that grave, but he got up. Jesus is alive. He lives within my heart. When Christ arose from the dead, he showed us that the grave did not end that spark of life or spirit. So many people are dying just around us, so many of us. And we, here being spiritual people, we know that death does not end nor interrupt life's existence. It is merely an incident in an endless life. And we have to believe that, and we have to know that we live on. When this physical body is gone, we continue to live on. Jesus coming out of that grave is proof that there is life after death, that there is life after death. And he lives within us. The Christ within me is the power that enables me, you, to rise triumphant out of every trial. We have trials, we go through things, but he promised that he would walk through these trials with us. And just have to get in prayer and talk to him. And we cannot do these popcorn prayers. Well, Heavenly Father, I'm in trouble. I need you to come right now. And after we get up off our knees, expect him to be there. No. It's what they call a process. He will work things out so that you are able to solve them yourself. Some people think Jesus is like a genie. You rub it and he comes out and he helps you. No. But he makes a way. He shows you things. When I say he makes a way, he may put someone in your life to guide and direct you. He may give you a thought. You may read a book and get an idea. You may see something on television that says, oh yes, I can do that. You may receive a phone call. But he makes a way for you to solve that problem. It says that I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. He's within us. He lives within me. And I know that he lives within each and every one of you. So and the usual Easter message is Christ rose from the grave. And when he got up, all power in his hands and things were new. And I want you to, I know last year, and I'm going to do it again, I talked about rolling the stones away out of our life. But right now, today, we're in the spring season. Things are new. When we were little, we used to wear new clothes to church on Easter Sunday because we are showing that newness of life, that newness of life. When he got up out of that grave, he got up with new ideas and new thoughts. And this morning, while you're here, whatever thoughts may be in your mind, I want you to clear them out and put some new thoughts in your mind that Jesus is able to help you, that Jesus lives, that we can do all things through Christ that strengthens us. Put some new words in your vocabulary, some new ideas. And Easter is about that. It's a time of newness, knowing that with God's help, all things are possible. This morning we have some Easter songs to sing, but I thank you for just knowing that Jesus lives, and we want him to live within each and every. Well, he lives within me. I hope that he does live within you, because last Friday, he died on that cross for us. If he hadn't died on that cross, then we would have to make those sacrifices. We would have to get a lamb, a year-old lamb, take it to the temple, and have the priest sacrifice it for the wrong things that we have done. But now all we have to say is, Heavenly Father, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that word. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, whatever you did that you thought was wrong, please forgive me. Because remember, sin is just missing the mark. Like I told you, throwing the dart right there, bullseye. Sin is just missing the mark. It's just a mistake that you made, and you ask him to forgive you. You get up and don't do it again. And if you do it again, say, Lord, I need a little more help. Will you please just help me a little more? So this morning, I thank you for listening. If you turn in your hymn book, we're going to sing